Welcome to Writing the West podcast. Our guests this week are actor Josh Holloway and director and screenwriter Ryan Whitaker, who worked together to bring Louis L'Amour's famous book, Flint, to life on the big screen.
If you want to talk about how this started, I feel like Josh needs to kick that off because he
Okay.
it was
Yeah.
long before
Yeah.
he started on
Oh,
this journey long before I
oh,
came along.
okay. Well, it basically, yeah. I mean, I grew up in North Georgia mountains. You go outside of any city within an hour, you're seeing Louis L'Amour books on people's bookshelves. So that's what I grew up with, and my father was very educated. They all loved reading. So anyway, I grew up reading, and I tend to lean towards that genre. So I loved the quickness of his books. It wasn't too long, so I grew up reading them. So Flint, I came across maybe 30, 20, 28 years ago, and I loved it. It was the perfect movie. I felt like it wrote itself. And so I was on Lost at the time, and I'm like, well, I'm going to use this platform. And I always said to my wife, I'm going to pick up where Clint left off. Damn it, I'm
That's
going
right.
to find that road. And I think Louis L'Amour is the road to a path to that. And so I've uh, looked up, his legacy and so forth. Found out his son was in charge of everything, and contacted him. He met me at a bar in a hotel when I was still on Lost 20 years ago.
Wow.
And I was like, I want to do this movie. He's like, you're too young. It's like, I can gray my beard, man, because the character is supposed to be my age now a bit. So that being said, we tried to work some things out, but Lost was a monster of a machine, and I couldn't get time in between. Then we were filming 22 episodes a year, so we had 2 months off. So he couldn't get a movie done. Kept putting it on hold. Then I lost contact with Bo because I was on another show. It just went crazy. And then I'd reach out again. We'd exchange a few emails, nothing. Then I was really pursuing him in the last few years. Like since Yellowstone, I did Yellowstone. I was like, this is the time. So I was like, I'm going to be relentless to Bo. And I got my agency on him. And he was open to it because, Bo was also a screenwriter, and I think he would like to see his father's legacy respected and brought to life in that way as well. So he was very open, and I brought him into UTA, and he got his entire legacy. He represented his father's legacy, and I had no idea they hadn't had representation in 40 years. I'm like, that IP? Are you joking me in America? So
Wow.
that was huge. And once that happened, we started all kinds of things. I was like, okay, let's do like a True Detective. We'll do a book a season, and change directors and actors, and that's it, and that didn't work out. And I was like, okay, flagship series, Flint. We'll change the ending. He doesn't die of cancer. Blah blah blah. Yeah, that didn't work. So I kept pitching, and then finally, I kind of gave up. And Ryan showed up. Ryan shows up with Bo like a magic carpet. It was the strangest thing. I've been like running into nothing but blocks for 20 years. And Ryan slides in with Bo. And I was like, I didn't even know they had just met. I thought they knew each other forever. And come find out they just met. And then I'm like, okay, this is actually happening. And I didn't believe in things much because of the thing that had just recently happened with Rust. It was really like I was like, this is not statistically gonna happen. And then I was doing another movie, and Ryan calls me in Albuquerque and says, would you be willing to go to Sarasota, Florida, and meet this billionaire? I'm like, episode Entourage, yes, let's do this. So we had our little team. We got our team together, and Nick Barnes, who found this guy and who's a amazing guy that works at a division of UTA in Nashville, and that's where we found Ryan, our magic carpet man. And then we go down there, so we're like, oh shit, we still don't have a script. We don't have a script, but we got a good idea and everything, and we put all that pressure on Ryan, like, okay, Now where's the script? And Ryan sucker. And I literally had no reference to whether Ryan could write or not. And I was like, oh boy. Uh, and it was brilliant. This first draft came in, I was like, ah, well, here he goes. Who is this guy? Who is this masked man? So they got the script, we got the story, we got the money. Uh, and it just, he's like, we're going in production by July. I was like, yeah, right, right. And sure enough, it's everything Ryan said he did. And him and Ken Carpenter, such a team. Bo, such a team player. And the first draft he gave a few notes, 25 pages, I think it was. Uh, so it was everyone worked together, and then when we got on set, I've never seen that kind of alchemy. Again, we just floated, and we had a skeleton crew of the most amazing artists that were all in it for love, and it was just like a freaking family, and the alchemy all came together, and I can't believe we're on the other side of this. This is crazy,
Wow.
and that
Wow.
was quite a ramble.
Yeah, well, and you mentioned something really important. You said that the time just felt right, and we've seen this kind of renewed appetite through the Yellowstone franchise and a few other Western shows like Dark Winds that have popped up.
Yep.
What about you from your perspective as an actor really made this time right in Hollywood?
Well, you nailed it. It was exactly our industry goes through these, just like the fashion industry. We go through these eras and kind of trends of what is being greenlit and what you're able to make at that time. And thanks to Taylor and Yellowstone and just a whole shift of everything in the climate, creatively, the opportunity just arose. And then I was Stone, even though I was an asshole Wall Street guy. I can't believe Taylor. Cannot believe that. Anyway, I got to be a part of that and really feel the need for it, and talking to people out there and how much they were excited that this is coming back. And I was like, man, this is the time to tell Western stories. People aren't, there's a real audience for it now, and they're speaking out. So, and they're showing up, and that's why his ratings were out of the, out of this world. So I'm like, wow, this is time. Presented itself like that, like the roller coaster of our creative world.
Yeah. Yeah. And Ryan, from your position as director and obviously script writer, I think there's been a shift definitely in Westerns in the last 5 or 10 years to modernize, and did you feel any pressure with that, or was this always really a traditional project in your eyes?
I mean, I think, you know, I'm a I'm a cinephile and I love classic westerns, and so, you know, what appealed to me, I think, was making something that was in the tradition of those films that I love, whether it's, John Ford or Anthony Mann or Sergio Leone, these films that are so seminal in that genre. So I always saw it as sort of in that tradition, but I think there is a modern sensibility to sort of the structure of the movie. There's a kind of nonlinear approach. We bounce back and forth for a portion of the film between past and present. The past is in black and white. The film is I think the film is kind of equally influenced by both Western and film noir, another genre that I really love. And so I think it is kind of consciously in the tradition of those classic Westerns and noir films that were an influence, but at the same time, you know, there is a modern sensibility to it, but it's not a self-aware winking at the audience kind of Western, it's certainly grounded and I think and earnest.
Well, and Josh mentioned you were kind of thrown into the fire a little bit with adapting Louis L'Amour, which is never an easy feat. What was that process like, and what was the biggest
Well,
challenge for you?
so Josh told you his side of the story. Like for me, what happened the way I became involved in this is I was shooting a series in Europe for 6 months, and I came home and I went by UTA's office in Nashville to meet with Nick Barnes, who reps me, who Josh mentioned, and Nick has uh, there's a division at UTA Nashville called Heartland, and Nick had signed Beau L'Amour and the L'Amour estate as a client, and I was sitting in his office, and he said, what do you want to do next? Are you interested in westerns? And I said, well, of course. I mean, I don't know how can you be a director, especially an American director, and not want to make a western at some point?
Right.
And so he sent me this deck that they'd put together of L'Amour titles that they thought would be, good adaptations. Went and read a few of the books. I was familiar with L'Amour, but I didn't really grow up reading him like a lot of people did. Aware of his work, but I read a few of the books, but one of them was Flint, and there was just I told Nick, I said, I think there's something really interesting to this story because it's not only is it you know just an exciting sort of classic Western, there are all of these really interesting kind of thematic ideas, and that's the interesting thing to me about L'Amour as I've read more of his work. He did write these very fast-paced page turner stories, but there's actually a lot of interesting thematic material happening kind of under the surface of the stories that he doesn't always fully flesh out, but it's always there. And in this one, you have, a man facing his own mortality. You have this idea of a character who kind of assumes the identity of this killer who raised him. And so there's this weird, almost Freudian aspect to this of identity and to the story. And so all this really interesting stuff in it. And I'm always most drawn to themes in stories. And so I think I just kind of knew immediately like what the movie was about thematically. And so um anyway, I said to Nick, I think Flint could be really interesting. He said, "Oh, I think Josh Holloway's interested in that." And I said, "Well, I always thought Josh Holloway should play a cowboy. So I'd love to meet him and see if he would let me write it for him. I mean, that would be a great opportunity." And so I flew out to LA to have lunch with Josh, and that was about, I don't know what, a year and a half ago. It wasn't that long ago. I mean, I'm used to projects taking years to come together in the indie world, and so this was lightning fast compared to my other, the other films I've made. So, um, all that to say, Josh maybe very foolishly said, "Sure, I'll attach to this," without ever seeing a script. And
The
then we
moment, Ryan, I was like, oh.
and then we raised the money without a script. I've never heard of
Yeah.
this before,
Me
ever.
either. Oh my God.
And so yeah, there was a bit of pressure, but I'd also been thinking about it for a while, and so I kind of had a general idea of how I would attack it, and so I finally did get around to writing the script, small detail. Um, and I think that was, I don't know what, towards the end of last year, I think is when I
Mhm.
shared the script with you, Josh, and with Bo, and got Bo's first round of 25 pages of notes. Bo is amazing because, and I'm sure you know this from talking to him, Tyler, but Bo is like, I mean, he has continued his father's legacy. He is like an encyclopedia of Louis L'Amour. I mean, he knows
Right.
everything
Yes.
about every book. And so, you know, it is a little intimidating sending a draft of a script to Bo,
I
like,
bet.
you know, but he's great. And yeah, so I mean, I think you asked about the adaptation. I mean, I think like Josh, like when I read the book, I could see pretty quickly how this could work as a film. Um, the more challenging, I would say the challenging part of it was there are a lot of characters and there's a lot of backstory. And so
Yeah.
there was a question of how much real estate can we dedicate, to just filling in the backstory and all the details, the things we need to know about James Kettleman and his upbringing and Flint and his life in New York and all that. And so, I think the film fills in what I felt were the most important details of that without hopefully bogging it down with too much information. So,
I was amazed at how you were able to do that, because one of the most appealing things to me about Flint was the scope, was that it wasn't just about the West. It was about a man who was raised in the West, and then became a man and became a multimillionaire in New York City in that era.
yeah.
And yet, like you said, not bogged down the Western part of it. And, I thought Ryan handled that beautifully and boldly, with
Oh,
using
yeah.
black and white and the film noir type thing, and really leaning into that. It's beautiful.
What is one of
So
the yeah, I mean the that is one of the interesting aspects of the story is that you have a character who is kind of equal parts West and East. And
hmm
I was talking to Bo early on about it, and Bo was saying, I think he was wisely observing that, the Western genre at its heart is always about the relationship and the tension between the West and the East. And it's sort
yes,
of about this idea of kind of the Wild West, sort of the civilized East making its way into the Wild West.
yes,
And this story is literally about that. You have
yes.
Porter Baldwin, has this land scam that he's concocted and moving down the the railroad lines, reclaiming railroad land. The railroad itself is sort of, is an encapsulation of the idea of the East make its way into the West. So you have
hmm
all these ideas baked into this story, which is
And
really,
me, I was born in Santa Clara, California. I moved, raised in Georgia my whole life, moved back to California. So I'm like all east west. I was like, oh, this is perfect for me. It makes perfect sense.
yeah, yeah.
Well, I was going to
And it's
ask you.
interesting, that, Flint, there's a like, Flint paid for Jim's schooling, right? He sent him to school. And so Jim became a lover of books and literature. And that's a really interesting kind of aspect to that
Yes.
as well, which I think was a bit of Lamore in,
Yeah.
himself in the story. Um,
Yes.
and I'm a big reader and a book nerd. And so I love that part of it.
Well, and Josh, like you said, not only do you connect to this character on the level of the East versus West, but, you mentioned that compared to 20 years ago, now you're kind of more in line with the age of Flint and this character. How different was it for you to make this movie now versus maybe had you got that opportunity 20 years ago? Is he frozen?
Did he freeze? Josh, I think you're frozen. He didn't want to answer that question.
I'll give you a question until he jumps back on. And when you think about, oh,
Oh,
there,
there he is.
got
There
you,
he is.
Josh.
Okay. Sorry.
You're good.
Sorry.
Did you hear my
Um,
question?
so I did, but
Okay.
Oh,
Gotta love this 4G, 5G.
right.
Well, I wanted to jump in maybe while Josh is coming back to us about the production. How important was it for you to try and shoot this movie in somewhere, because just like Sergio Leone, you mentioned him, these are all in Italy or in a lot of Westerns we've seen in the last 20 years have taken place in Canada or Romania or different places like that. How
Mhm.
important was it for you to film it as close to possible as where these stories are set?
Well, I mean, it's an interesting question. The book in the book the story takes place in New Mexico, and the
Right.
plan for a long time was to shoot in New Mexico. For a variety of reasons, we ended up moving to Montana, and there was this sort of conundrum of what do we do? Do we try to shoot Montana for New Mexico, which strangely enough, probably could be done because there are some sort of desertish sort of regions in Montana. But as soon as we got there, and saw the grandeur of that area, we were in the sort of Paradise Valley, Livingston area. It's just absolutely gorgeous, mountains everywhere. You go like we would be robbing ourselves if we couldn't capitalize on all of this beauty around us. And so I called Bo and very nervously floated the idea of, shooting in Montana. And he said, "Great." He said, "I don't care. Change the setting of the story to Montana for all I care." So that was a
Am I
huge,
with you guys?
yeah, we got
Yeah,
you.
we hear you, Josh.
Oh, thank God.
So that
Yeah,
was a
that
huge
was a shocker. We
relief.
were expecting some resistance there, and Bo's like, "Sounds good." We're like, "Oh,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is the story. I think, there are certain aspects of it that had to be we had to adjust some things um to accommodate that setting, but I think it certainly captures the spirit of the novel.
Well, and Josh,
absolutely."
you're no stranger to that area either. Can you talk for a second about what it was like shooting there?
Oh my God. And to either area, because I just finished a season of Duster in Albuquerque and in the desert there, and I knew that very well. And of course, I got a place in Wyoming for 14 years. I've had a cabin there, and that's my mecca, out there. So of the Malapas and the lava and the hidden valleys within that was such a part of the story, and it was so gritty, like the black walls. And but in reality, being a producer for many years, trying to bring things to life is another story. And the Malapas out there, it's inaccessible where we need to go and film. We couldn't, and without helicopters and 100 and also approvals of its national monuments and stuff. We can't do that. So the pivot to Montana really worked because to me, part of the film, the landscape was a character within itself within the film, so it was important in the story. And so I was like, how's that going to work? And then you just fucking show up in Montana. You're like, oh yeah, this is how it's going to work. It's epic. It's just blows your mind. And I'm like, everywhere you point the camera, it just elevates the production value of your film. And Ryan, when you take a picture and you're like, "That's a good picture," and then someone like Ryan takes a picture and you go, "Oh, that's a picture." So they, he knew how to capture that and really maximize every single aspect of that, and which to me was just one of those things. It just continued to elevate, and so I say that, but Ryan and Ken had to pivot from New Mexico to Montana, Iowa,
Oh,
launching Duster,
no,
which was a waste of my time. But
no,
anyway,
no regrets though. I mean, we certainly there was a little bit of there was some anxiety there, during that pivot of like, okay, is this the right decision? But, I think
yeah,
people tend to associate the Western genre with the desert, but there are a lot of great Westerns set in the mountains. I mean, I mentioned Anthony Mann. I love his films, those films he made with Jimmy Stewart, whether it was
Yeah.
The Naked Spur or Bend to the River or The Far Country. Um, uh, is that right? Far Country? Yeah, Far Country. Um,
yeah. My
those are all
two
stories.
favorites are like The Mountain Men and Jeremiah Johnson. So I love the
Jeremiah
Rockies.
Johnson. I mean,
Yeah,
Unforgiven
Yeah.
is Mountain Man.
Unforgiven. Yes.
So yeah, I mean, I think it provided such an incredible backdrop, and I mean, the skies alone in Montana are just incredible. It's really
Yeah.
it's
Well,
really a beautiful place.
well, and Josh
Yeah.
mentioned, not only the beauty, but the difficulty that comes with shooting in a place like that. And not only are you shooting a film, but it's a classic Western. Were there any challenges in doing so, whether it was technical or logistical for you guys?
I think everything's challenging
Yeah.
always. I mean, this film has the script had 220 plus scenes. And some of those are short, very short scenes, but it's still a scene you have to shoot. And so, it was we sh shot over 25 days, but it's just the days were just packed so full. There's just it's you're just racing every single day to try to get it done. And there's a lot of action, and the slowest thing to shoot is action because it's very just meticulous, stunts and gunfire and all of that. And so to me, that was the biggest challenge of just trying to fit it all in, just trying to how do we get it all done in the
Yeah.
time that we have.
Well, that was what was so magical about it. It's in the way of the way Clint films. What I've heard, you can only get one take, two takes, maybe. And I love that fluidity, and you gotta deliver. We ain't got time. It's like, let's hit it. And
Yeah.
it was fluid, and every actor came up on level, every crew member, everything. And we hit it, and we packed those days in without compromise. That's what the beauty was. Everything, but then you're compromising the art. We did not do that. It was just fluid. I don't know how you guys did that, but
Yeah,
fantastic.
we tried.
Um,
We
it- Back to that question before I froze quickly. What is my different perspective playing it now than then? I actually, when I was preparing for the role, and I always draw from my personal life to put into the character, and I was like, well, damn, this so parallels my life. I left the mountains of Georgia, being raised on a dirt road, poor, went modeled all over the world, became an actor, all this stuff, came back west, uh, then dealing with death, because at this age, both parents have died. Then my good friend had ALS, so I had that conversation. He's like, I'm dying, see you later. And I'm like, fuck. So I had that perspective of what would that be like if someone said, you're dead, you're dying. You got a couple of years maybe. And so I just went through that with my friend. And so I had that perspective, and I used him a lot in the film. I used that uh, our time together, our last times together before he wouldn't let me see him anymore. And so, yes, that's how it changed my perspective. Life experience. I grew up. I went through family death. There you go.
Yeah. Well, and stepping into this role as I think, correct me if I'm wrong, this is like your first traditional Western role. Um,
Yes.
did it change the way you view the genre at all, being in one for the first time?
Yeah. It's funny because it's I'm struggling to slow down, which is very strange. I've never in my entire career been told to. Ryan would come and say, maybe you could just slow it down just a click. Maybe just bring it back a click. I'm like, what? I'm Southern. No one has ever said that to me in my entire career. You could drive a bus through my pauses normally. And then I was like, and Ryan kept coming to me, just click. I was like, wow, okay. And what it brought me to is it's not all this dialogue. It's driven by intention and straight necessity. That's the West. Necessity, intention. There's no room for fat. You trim all the fat because it's survival and basic intentions, and that was interesting to drop into. Took me a minute.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
you were also stepping into the shoes of a character, beloved by millions of readers of Louis L'Amour's, and how did you come to terms with that? And was there a point or a line or a scene in the film where you just finally felt like you found the character for yourself?
oh wow. I was finding him the entire time. So there's many of those moments, but God, right now I have a wash of memories. I can't even think of one right now. But yes, I'll get back to you. Let that percolate. But I had no problem stepping into that role. I loved. I was confident to do it and honor it. I still don't know what my performance is like. What is it, Ryan? Did I do all right?
I think you did all right.
All right.
I stepped out of the edit bay to to do this interview. So like right next door, our editor is working on the film, and
Oh, cool.
it's looking great. No, I mean my observation is it's a very different role for Josh. I mean, we've never really
Yeah.
seen him play this kind of character before. I think that, I think even just in this interview, I think you probably sense, Tyler, that Josh is a charismatic guy, and
Oh, yeah.
he's he's got some charisma, and that's who he is. And in a lot of the roles that he's played, that's kind of that's an important aspect of the character. Whereas in this, it's a very dark, stoic, kind of brooding
Yes.
character. So I think it's a lot of fun to see to to see him portray that character. And yes, there are glimmers of that you know Sawyerness that comes out here and there, I would say.
I
But
remember having this discussion with
it is a
Ryan.
different. What's that?
I remember having a discussion because I was like, "You're like, could you bring it back a little more down?" I was like, "But Ryan, I gotta have some me in it." And he's like, "Trust me, it's in there. It's in there." Yeah.
No, it is. It is.
It's like, come on, man. He's like, no, no, click it back.
Yeah.
Well, I'd love if you guys spoke for a second about how the dynamic between the two of you developed during the film. I know it's not been a friendship that's brooded over many years. You guys just met a year and a half ago, I think you mentioned. Ryan, do you want to talk first about your approach to working with Josh and obviously the other casting crew, and Josh pick it up after he's done?
Well, I mean,
Yep.
look, Josh has had a relationship with this character, as we've talked about, and this book for many years. And so, I had a lot of trust in him that he would be coming prepared, and he knew the character, knew the role. Um, so, I don't feel like I mean, when you cast well, it makes the job of directing a lot easier. And I think we had a great cast in this film, beginning with Josh as number one on the call sheet, and he I think set a great tone on set for everyone. Um, but I just think everybody came and delivered, and Josh specifically really inhabited this character in an interesting, compelling way. You know, uh, he was talking about me saying bring it back, or a click slower, this or that. But those are micro adjustments. I mean, it's like he's already, you know, he's become this guy, and um, so I think I trusted him, and hopefully he trusted me, and it was easy.
That's how that's exactly how I feel. It was a trust thing because I mean, it was a quick relationship, but every step I was like trusting Ryan more. It was like, oh wow, he's actually got Bo, really on board to do this thing. Oh wow, we found money. Oh wow, he wrote a script. I was like, and then we get, on set and the first shot, I'm like, oh wow, this man knows how to film as well. So it was just a constant reassurance for me that I was working with an incredible artist and that I didn't even know. And so that was like a daily breath of fresh air. It was amazing, and it was very smooth. And like Ryan said, it wasn't a lot of Ryan doesn't over direct or over. He hires the right people, and so it's very even between your relationship between you and Garrett. There's a lot of time you guys didn't say a lot. You'd look, you'd think, da, 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 yeah, okay, and then boom, go. So it was very like that Jedi. The whole shoot was Jedi, and the adjustments with me. He really knows how to talk with actors and micro adjustments. That was it. That's all we needed, little micro adjustments, and we nailed it and moved right on. So for me, it was one of the smoothest, most rewarding experiences of my career because also I'm in TV a lot, and TV is about hose it down, cover it so much that there's no way you missed anything. And then they have, most of us on the editing floor. There was none of that here. Ryan had a clear vision. We had no time for that bullshit. It was art, and every shot mattered, and every shot was a conscious effort towards that creative fulfillment of that. So that was different for me as an actor to get to experience that without like, oh God, we're doing it again just so they can have this crap that they're not going to use. So amazing.
Well, Josh mentioned Garrett, our cinematographer, Garrett Hardy Davis, who
Warrior.
absolutely just crushed it. And it's interesting. I mean, obviously Josh and I never worked together, but I'd worked with very few of the people on this film. Previously I'd worked with Ken Carpenter. He produced a movie of mine, and Geraldine Escabel, who was one of our producers, and Ari Novak, who's our line producer. I'd worked with those three, but beyond that, was all new relationships, and so you know, it is a little scary at the beginning because you're just hoping everybody delivers. But um, it was a great working relationship with Garrett because I think we share the same taste and kind of the same style, and so yeah, it did make it easy. I mean, the thing when you're making a movie, you want to make sure that everyone on that movie is making the same movie. That's always the
Yes.
that's always the challenge. And so even in trying to find a particular shot on the day, there'd be times where Garrett and I would, okay, let's try it, 25 millimeter, whatever it is. And we look at each other and we go, different movie, just a different movie. And so
Yes.
trying to make sure that you're kind of managing the tone of the thing that you're making. And that is across all departments, and obviously in performance.
Yes.
Yeah, well, and Ryan, you mentioned you're in the editing room right now, and for you, when you get done with this process and you have that final cut, what's success look like for you as a director?
Well, I mean, I think success is this movie getting in front of the widest audience possible, and obviously we want the movie to be profitable because none of us are interested in making something that loses money. This is a for-profit business endeavor, but no, I think beyond that, I mean, uh, introducing a new generation to Lemoore is really exciting. The prospect of that, I think, um, being a part of sort of the kind of the rebirth, the renaissance of the Western genre, however you want to phrase it, that's happening right now is very cool. And it's very exciting to be a part of that. And hopefully, you always hope that you're making something that has some kind of impact culturally. It's so hard because it's so unpredictable in this business.
Yes.
No formula.
Well,
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, I think, obviously there's success from a business perspective, but then there's success on sort of the more the creative artistic front. And you always just want to move people. You want the movie to want people to track with the story, be moved by the story, be excited. You're cooking, you're a chef cooking a meal for the audience.
Yes. Yes.
well,
You want a good Yelp review after, right?
right. Well, and Josh, I'll end with you for our final question. Louis L'Amour hasn't had a plethora of movies made, but for those that he has, they've had pretty well-known actors from John Wayne with Hondo to Tom Selleck and Sam Elliott and now you. And you know, what's success look like for you as the lead in this film?
Well, already mentioning that, I feel success in the company I am with, and I'm like,
Not bad.
yes, that feels good because I'm a fan of all of those actors and those books, and so that already is success. That we have done this is success in itself. As an actor and an artist, a lot of times I have to hold on to just the art and being fulfilled by the work that we put in artistically, because you never know at the end the business side of it, and it normally turns out not as good as you'd hoped. So as an actor, you have to like get a thick skin with that and be like, my success is did I embody that role and give it everything I have. And for me, success looks like, the audience has to take the ride. If I didn't embody it enough, if you don't take the ride, I didn't take the ride. And I took the ride. So I know the audience is going to take the ride. And that is success for me. I want to see an impact. The money is fine. And of course, I'd hope for that. But that's mainly because I'm trying to open a whole can of worms. And you can't open that can of worms if you don't success. So I'm like, yes, come on, so we can do another one and then another one. I want to open this can of worms and do a bunch of these with Ryan. Clint's had his same crew for 37 years or something. I'm looking to go down that road, and so we'll see. But right now, I feel this has been a success, and I can't wait to see it.
Well, we can't wait to see it either. We're all eagerly waiting for that final cut, and we'll let Ryan and his crew get back to work on that. And I really appreciate you guys being here to talk Flint with us today.
Right
Yeah.
on. Well, thanks for having us. Get back
Yeah,
to work, Ryan.
thanks for your patience in
Of course,
scheduling this. We've
of
been
course. Well, when the film
Yes,
does drop,
sorry.
oh, you're fine. Yeah, when the film
Yeah.
does drop, we'll have to get back together again after everybody can view it and hopefully see a lot of that success coming to fruition.
Yes, we love
great.
that. We
Thank
love
you.
that.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank
Take
you,
care.
sir.
Have a
All
good one.
right. Take care, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.